Okay, good morning, everyone, and Hazak Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Tuesday morning, my friends. Today's class is sponsored anonymously for the Refuah Shlema of all of Am Yisrael, for the safety, for the protection, and the return of our hostages. Be'ezrat Hashem, we should see Yeshuot. Amen. My friends, Perashat Matot and Mas'eh this week. Matot deals, chapter 31, Vadaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. God says to Moshe to say, Nekom nikmat b'nei Yisrael me'et ha-Midyanim. It is time for vengeance. Against whom? Against Midian. Remember, it was the women of Midian just a couple of weeks ago that enticed the Jewish people to sin, immorality. It led to a huge plague, thousands and tens of thousands of deaths. And God says, now it's time to get even for what they did. Ahar te'asef el amecha, and then you will die. And what Hashem was telling Moshe over here was that the moment you finish this will be your last mission. So, not your mission shall you choose to accept it, but your last mission shall you choose, right? Should you choose to accept it? And really, our rabbis say that Moshe Rabbeinu did not have to accept it. God gave him a way out of dying. He could have delayed this last mission. If his death was contingent upon this, then just delay this, and then your death is also delayed. God was telling him, you do this and then you'll die. Moshe Rabbeinu, being the servant that he was, he wanted to fulfill God's commandment immediately. He did it right away without any delay. Vaydaber Moshe la'am lemor, and Moshe therefore, what's the next pasuk? God says, go and fight Midian, and then you'll die. So the next pasuk, Moshe says to the people, Hehaletzu me'etechem, arm men from amongst yourselves for battle. Ve'yu Midian latenik mat Hashem Midian, and we're going to go and get vengeance against Midian for God. Elef lamate, 1,000 per tribe, 1,000 per tribe. Vayimasiru me'alfei Yisrael elef lamate, they ended up getting 1,000. Vayishlach otam Moshe, and Moshe sends these 12,000 men, 1,000 per tribe, 12,000. Pinhas, and he was the leader, Ben Elazar. And they go out to battle, and they crushed it, they defeated the 5 kings, they killed everybody, and they come back. Okay, very nice. This is the Torah, this is the Pasuk. And the Ora Hayim over here, my friends, the Ora Hayim HaKadosh, Hayim ben Atar, who was studying beautifully commentary this year, he says, Sarich Ladat, he says, what does it mean? Sorry. He says like this. Nekom nikmat b'nei Yisrael. What does that mean? Take the children of Israel's vengeance on the Midianites. Says the Ora Hayim, Mashma'uta katuv yagid, it would sound like from the verse, Shehitil Hashem al Moshe lehinakem Midian, that it is Moshe's job right now to personally take vengeance on Midian. If you didn't know any better, it sounds like God's instructing Moshe, you get this done. You go out, you fight Midian, you get revenge. However, we find Moshe, not only didn't he go out to battle, not only didn't he lead, he didn't even go out to battle. He didn't do anything. He literally sat in his home and he sent Pinchas to go do it. So why didn't Moshe personally get his hands involved in this message? Achen, however, explains Ora Hayim. The answer is that the word nekom, what does that mean? Take revenge. What does it mean to take revenge? He says it's shnei drachim. It can mean one of 2 things. Number 1, to actually get revenge yourself and go fight. But number 2, hishtadlut seder hama'aseh, to actually prepare for the vengeance. Meaning, to devise a wise plan. Hithakmut seder hamilhama. There are different people that are fighting. A person that's with a gun is fighting, and a person that's actually strategizing is also a fighter. When God says to Moshe, take revenge, Moshe was unsure. Which one does God mean? Does he mean that I should go fight? Or does he mean that I should just prepare a game plan, a battle plan to ensure victory? What does God mean? Ben bashi'ur hatzarich, whether it means how many soldiers, beseder sheyasig, how many, the strategy to get the goal, right? The formation, how to organize themselves, right? It can mean one of those two things. Either, again, that Moshe should go to battle himself, literal exact vengeance, or that Moshe should be the one to organize this battle. That's what it means when it says nekom nikmat, take vengeance. It doesn't necessarily mean you should fight. It could mean you should fight, and it could also mean you should just be the brains behind the battle plans. Vehevin Moshe perush sodek, and Moshe correctly understood that the word nekom, that God says take, hi hakmut seder hadavar, it means that Moshe should plan a wise course of action through which vengeance would be carried out. How? How did Moshe know that it was that meaning out of the two? He explains, God didn't say wage war on Midian. Hilahim is more direct. You should fight. But he doesn't say it like that. He says take vengeance. So that means that you could be behind the scenes. Not only that, there's also something else over here. There was a very need for wise planning. The success of the mission depended on having a wise plan. Why? Why do you need such a wise plan? Look at the Orah Haim over here. The people that were about to go fight, the Midyanim, that's the very nation that we failed through. So fighting Midian, the fact that we're fighting them, of all people, actually presented now a danger to the Jewish people. Because we failed, we committed sins with them just a few days ago. Whether it was action of immorality or just bad thoughts, but people, we failed through them. Now it's true, God already punished us. He killed 24,000 people. However, sof kol sof imana mehem hanes bahem. But at the end of the day, it's still a stain on our record. I'll give you an example, he says. Think about the sin of the golden calf. Already we got punished for the sin. And yet still every year on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol dare not enter the Holy of Holies wearing gold. Why does he not wear gold? Because gold is going to remind God of the golden calf. So you see that there's a concept here. En kategor naaseh sanegor. That there's certain things that remind God. We don't want to remind God of the golden calf. We don't want to remind God of certain sins that we did. So if we're going to fight a nation, the very battle itself presents a dilemma, because that is a reminder of the sin. So how do you get around that? It's a catch-22. How do we get around this issue? Another example. He says that also Hashem commanded that those who dwell, look at this one, I never knew this, I don't know if you knew this. The angels, you know why they cover their feet? Because their feet look like the feet of calves. Hashem doesn't want to be reminded of anything to do with a calf. Cover your feet. I don't want to see it. Amazing. So we have to be very careful not to remind Hashem of our sins. We know that even in a regular battle, there would be a Kohen who would stand up and announce, anybody that sinned, go home. And what kind of sin are we talking about? Our rabbis tell us even a tiny sin of speaking in between wearing tefillin of the yad and the tefillin of the rosh. That's how small of a sin a person has to be worried about. So kal v'homer, how much more so a person who over here sinned with the women of Midian, you yourself are going to go in the battle? What are you doing? You're out of your mind? And therefore, therefore when God says to Moshe, you take vengeance, Amar vadai kavanat Hashem, it must be what God means is that I should strategize and figure out a wise way of ensuring victory. Not that I should actually fight. That's the main idea that God wants me to do, is to make sure that we achieve success. To make sure that vengeance is going to be exacted from Midian. And that's what Moshe ends up doing, like I will soon explain. So let us go to the next pasuk and see what was Moshe's plan. How do you make sure to win this battle when the whole battle itself presents now a problem for you? So that's the next pasuk. Vaydaber Moshe la'am. So Moshe now gathers the people. And it's very interesting. He doesn't pick the 12,000. He says, you guys, from amongst yourselves, pick 12,000. Why? Why does Moshe do it like this? If you go back to the battle against Amalek, what does it say over there? Amar b'milchemet Amalek leYehoshua behar lanu anashim. He says to Yehoshua, you pick the men. So all of a sudden here, Moshe doesn't pick the men. How come? Why doesn't he say Pinchas, you pick your team, select your army? Why are you making people sign up for themselves? Who will determine who should be the one to push himself to go out to the army? Everyone would say, I don't want to do it. Have someone else go. You go. Right? Too many chefs in the kitchen. If you leave it up to everyone to decide on their own, then no one's going to do it. You have to command. You go, you go, you go, you go. So these are the questions over here. So he says, Yesh be'inyan milhama zo mehush sodek. He says, like we said above, there is a problem here. We have a problem. Moshe over here is supposed to make sure that they win, that they get vengeance. And Moshe understood that there's a problem. Because if there's anyone that's guilty on account of the daughters of Midian, they're not going to guarantee victory. A guy's going to fall in battle. How are you going to pick people that didn't sin? How are you going to know who sinned? Therefore, Lo Ratzah libhor anashim al yedei hazulat. Moshe didn't draft. No one over here should choose. You know why? Ki mi yodei anashim asher lo hashvu machshevet aven. Who could guarantee? You know who had bad thoughts with Midian? You know who sinned? You don't know. Nobody knows. So how are you going to know? You know who knows? Each man himself knows. Each guy knows if I'm guilty or not. So therefore here, says the Ora Hayim, you can't pick someone to draft the army. Because if God forbid he drafts one guy who's guilty, that guy's going to die in battle. So therefore Moshe left it up to each individual on his own. You on your own, you decide if you're guilty. You know the truth between you and yourself. Anyone that stumbled wouldn't come. So Moshe therefore counseled Ve'amar that men from among the assembly of Israel should be armed. Join the army on your own. You know deep down if you're guilty. Anyone that's pure, anyone that's clean, they should join. Wow. And that's what it means over here when Moshe doesn't pick the people. He sends on their own. On your own, you guys decide for yourselves who's clean, who's not. That's also, by the way, connects to what we said yesterday. The word lemor also means immorality. So therefore, by daber, right, that's what it means. Lemor. By daber Moshe la'am, Moshe said to the people, lemor, anyone that committed immorality, don't come. And therefore, you have to pick amongst yourselves. Now, what's the problem? The problem is, here's the next problem. You see, every solution leads to another issue. So, we have a problem here. We can't fight Midian because if you fight Midian, we sinned with Midian. So the solution is only send people that didn't sin. Okay, but there's another problem. If you're only going to send people that didn't sin, now everyone else that doesn't go, now you know they're guilty. What are you going to do? How are you going to spare them without embarrassing them? So look over here. Clever, very, very brilliant. He says, Vayimaseru me'alfei Yisrael. That's why Moshe capped it at 1,000. Because now whoever is righteous will volunteer on the mission. And once they reach 1,000, you have to stop. You have to stop the draft. Even though there were many more than 1,000 that were going to volunteer to come fight because they were innocent. However, we needed to stop it. We didn't want to embarrass anyone that didn't come. Now you gave everyone a way out. You said you got to volunteer, and you also said we're stopping it at 1,000 per tribe. So now whoever was righteous volunteered. And whoever didn't volunteer, it's not necessarily a proof that they weren't righteous. It could be that they could say, oh, I wanted to volunteer. I was ready to go. But they already reached 1,000. Oh, man. All right, next battle. I'll come to the next one. Right? And now they gave them a way out. Look, you see Torah, my friends, how Torah is so sensitive. How Torah is really bending over backwards not to embarrass anybody. My friends, this needs to be, especially in our times that we're in right now. We're in a time of the 3 weeks, a time of Deen, a time of Beit HaMikdash, introspection. We have to stop embarrassing people. That should really be the focus right now. We cannot embarrass. You're talking about over here people that sinned, people that did an averah, they did bad averot, immorality, avodah zarah, they sinned with the women. And Moshe still is sensitive. He's finding a way to make sure that they don't die. And not only they don't die, it would be understandable if Moshe said, listen, if you sinned, don't come, okay? You're welcome. You're welcome, guys. You owe me one. I was going to send you in, and you would not be protected, but you're welcome. I'm only going to draft the ones who are clean. The rest of you, go home. I don't want you to die. Moshe, if he did that, you would call him a tzaddik. Wow, beautiful. He's saving them from death. But Moshe is higher than a tzaddik. Moshe is doing more, even more than that. Moshe is asking himself, fine, they're not going to die, but they're still going to be embarrassed. He's thinking, how could I spare them even from the embarrassment? Okay, only 1,000 per tribe. Now, if they don't sign up, maybe it's just because the quota is met. That's the excuse they're going to give everyone. Sensitive, my friend, sensitive. Embarrassment. The worst thing a person could do. The Rambam writes, certain people lose their portion in the world to come. And one of them is Hamalvim Penei Havero Berabim, person who embarrasses people publicly. We should do whatever we can. It's not worth it. We have a roast, a comment, a joke, you could say something. Don't embarrass people. It's never worth it. Nothing justifies embarrassing people's feelings, my friends. It's the worst thing that we could do. They once asked the great rabbi, the Stipler, what should one do? What should one work on their whole life? What should be your mission when you leave the world? The Stipler didn't say to finish Shas. He didn't say read Tehillim every day. He said make it your mission not to embarrass people. Make it your life's goal to be sensitive to the feelings of the people around us. That, my friends, that is a lesson. That is what the 3 weeks are about. That is what we're here to do. We are here to think about other people. We're here to help other people. The Gemara tells us how far it goes not to embarrass people. The Gemara says, learn from Tamar. Who was Tamar? Tamar, the Torah tells us, was a little girl. She was a beautiful girl. She was the daughter-in-law of Yehuda. Yehuda had a son, his name was Ir. We studied about him last week in the Ora Hayim. Ir married Tamar. Unfortunately, it says that he wasted. He didn't want to get her pregnant because she was beautiful. God killed him because of that sin. Then the next brother marries him, that's called Yibum. He marries her, and he also dies. He dies for a different reason. He didn't want to get her pregnant because he didn't want to give his brother a future. Horrible, right? It's unfortunately still around, where we don't want our brothers to be successful. We want to be the most successful. And when a sibling comes to us, we say, you won't do it, you can't do it, you can't be successful, you'll never get it, you'll always need me, you can't do it on your own. Right? So unfortunately, even today, we find onans that they're not happy to see their brother succeed. So Onan, he wanted to make sure his brother didn't get a future, so he didn't get her pregnant. God killed him too. Then there was a third brother, Shelah. Yehuda said, there's no way I'm giving Shelah, my third son, to her. She killed 2 out of 2. He thought it was her fault. She killed 2 out of 2. Katlanit, it's called in the Gemara language. She's a murderer. Katal means to kill. In Arabic we say etil. Katal, etil. Okay. So he lied to her. He gave her some baloney excuse that Shelah's too young and come back when he gets older. She realized he's getting older and he's not coming. So she decided to take matters into her own hands. She went, the Pasuk says, the Torah says, she went out into the middle of the street one day. She found out where Yehuda is going to be crossing. And she placed herself in the crossroads, dressed up like a prostitute. Yehuda walked by, got enticed, and he did something with her. She needed payment. I don't know if they took Venmo back then, but she needed payment. So he didn't have money. She said, listen, I'll take collateral. So she took his staff, she took his cloak, she took his ring, and she said, when you pay me, I'll give them back to you. Okay, you know where I am? Okay. The next day, he sent his friend. Pasuk says, okay, I want to read the Pasuk. It's an amazing Pasuk, by the way. Parashat Vayeshev. It says over here, Vayinahem Yehuda. Sorry, wrong Pasuk. Vayishlach Yehuda et Gedi ha'azim. So he sends the payment. Who? How? Beyad re'ehu ha'adulami. Wow. He sends it with his friend, the Adulamite. Lakahat eravo miyad ha'isha. To go take back his collateral. I want you to pause for a second, my friends, and think about this. This is one of the first times the word friend appears in the Torah, you should know. And I think the Torah is giving us over here a very big insight into what a friend is. Just imagine this was you for a second. Imagine you're Yehuda and you failed. Okay? Your evil got the best of you. You committed a sin. And now you have to send payment. How would you send payment? You send it from a third-party email that you delete afterwards. You send it from, right? You're not going to send payment with your friend. You never make sure your friend never finds out. Your friend? Says, who does he send payment with? His friend! Torah is over here teaching us what a real friend is, my friend. My friends, I want to tell you, our rabbis tell us in Pirkei Avot, Aseh lecha rav ukneh lecha haver. In life, buy a friend, singular, not friends. Because a real friend, my friends, right? A real friend, not something that you can find easily. A real friend, you can't get a lot of. A friend is not somebody that you just have on your contacts. A friend is not somebody that you just happen to play golf or tennis with. That's okay, an acquaintance. A real friend in the Torah's eyes, and you're lucky if you could get one of them, is somebody that you could tell your darkest secret to. Somebody that you know you'll tell them and you won't end up on SY alerts. You won't be community news. You won't be everyone talking about you, talk of the town the next day. Do you have such a friend? Do you have someone in the world that you know, if you told them something that you did that was very ugly, you know, I have a kid in Mexico, I got this, and you know you could tell your friend, and it's a vault, and they won't judge you, and they'll never say anything. That's a friend. A friend is someone that's there for you, that cares about you. A good friend, I heard this line one time, it's a beautiful line. A good friend will critique you to your face and defend you behind your back. A fake friend will do the exact opposite. A fake friend to your face will defend you. Behind your back, they talk about you. A good friend is your best advocate. Never judge you. I'm not talking about at a certain point a person's a bad person. You have to stay away from such a person. If your guy's constantly doing the wrong things, you shouldn't be friends with such people. Harhek mishachen ra. You got to stay away from bad people. I'm talking about good people that we make mistakes. People make mistakes, whatever it is. Look over here, Yehuda, he sends payment. The Torah calls him, that's a friend. If you could trust someone so much that you could send and it's not going to be leaked out, no one's going to find out, it stays a secret between me and you. That's a friendship, my friends. That's something that's very hard to find. That's something that's not easy to find. That's his friend, the Adulamite. Wow. So that's an amazing story. That's a lesson in itself. But either way, he sends his friend to go pay a prostitute. Yehuda is that confident in their friendship. The friend goes, Mafi prostitutes. There's nobody there. Where's the G? No one's here. What do you mean? He told me. I don't know what you're talking about. There was never a prostitute over here. We've been here for years, decades. We don't know no prostitutes. Yehuda realized, okay, must have gotten scammed. Fine. 3 months later, who's pregnant? Who's showing? Tamar. Yehuda, you know your daughter-in-law, Tamar, who's supposed to be waiting for your son Shelah, she's PG. What? What does he say? Hotzi'uha v'tesaref. Out to be burned. Kill her. Now the truth is, she's innocent. Because she's pregnant from who? She's pregnant from him. And that was allowed before the Torah was given. That was a form of yibum. That is levirate marriage. Just like you could do it with a brother, you could do it with anyone in the family actually. We find that Boaz, who was the uncle of Ruth, or the cousin of Mahlon, he also performed this form of yibum. So you see, it can be done with anyone really. Now the Torah was given, there's other rules, but this is before the Torah was given. So technically it was kosher. Yehuda didn't do anything wrong. Tamar didn't do anything wrong. And Tamar easily could save her life. All she needs to do is say, you, Yehuda, remember these? You got me pregnant. It's your baby. I didn't do anything wrong. She could have done that and she would have been absolved. They wouldn't be able to kill her. But says the Gemara that Tamar understood if she does that, she knew how embarrassing it's going to be. How embarrassing. Because Yehuda now is going to be exposed that he went with a prostitute. Because at least that's who he thought she was. It's going to be embarrassing. Oh, Yehuda, you succumbed to temptation like that. And if she said, she would embarrass him. So what did she do? She took the rod, she took the cloak, she took the 3 items, and she sends them, as she's being taken to be burned, she sends them with a messenger, and she says, go and tell Yehuda that the father of the fetus is the man who owns these items. She took the evidence and she put it back in the man's hands. She said it here, the ball's in your court. You do what you want. That's a wild thing. Because again, she has her ticket to freedom right here. And she's taking a ticket and she's ripping it up. She's giving she's giving the contract to the other party. That's all you have. But she knew how embarrassing it's going to be for him. And the Gemara says, learn from here, mutav sheyapil adam atzmo b'kishon ha'esh. It's better for a person to get thrown into a fire than to embarrass lahavin penei havero berabim. She was willing to die. She was willing to die, not to embarrass Yehuda. Now the ending of the story, we know what happens. Yehuda mans up, which he didn't have to. He could have quickly buried the evidence, killed Tamar, nobody would know, keep it hush-hush, no scandal. And Yehuda, the man that he was, he stepped up, he owned it. Sadeka mimeni, she's more righteous than me. I'm the father, I'm guilty. It's my fault. She didn't do anything wrong. He manned up, as embarrassing as it was. He became the talk of the town for the next few weeks. But he did the right thing. And actually from here, Yehuda's greatness was born. From here he learned to admit. My friends, the power of admitting. It's such a hard thing to do. We don't like to admit. We like to cover up. We like to justify. We like to kosher. It's not me. It's your fault. It's everyone's fault. I didn't do anything. There was misunderstanding. I was stressed. It's my work's fault. It's my stress's fault. Never my fault. Yehuda says, my fault. He admits, the first to admit, by the way. Now we understand his name. His name, Yehuda, from the word vidui. Vidui means to confess. It also means to think. He was named actually Yehuda for the word todah, thank you. But it's also the same word, todah, as vidui, as a confession. Yehuda is he who confessed. And when it was time for Yaakov Avinu to pick a king, my friends, he doesn't pick Yosef as good as Yosef was. Because to be a king, you need something more than just to be a goody two-shoes. To be a king, you need to have the power, the courage, the strength to confess, to admit when you're wrong. That's not an easy thing. But Yehuda had that. And Yehuda ata yoducha achecha. Your brothers, they bow to you. And the word used is yodu. Your brothers will adhere to you because you are the one that you are the yodeh, you are the mevadeh, you do vidui. What an amazing lesson, my friends. Think about how often in life do we say the word sorry. When was the last time you said sorry? Many times we know we're wrong. We're caught in the middle of a lie, in the middle of being wrong. We're guilty. We don't admit. It's hard. It's hard to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No, I was trying. I only meant well. I'm sorry. Period. C'est tout. No ifs, ands, or buts. I'm sorry. I'm guilty. I was wrong. Period. Not I'm sorry, but. Not I'm sorry, however. No, I am sorry. I'm wrong. I made a mistake and I'm sorry. But not yelling like I just did. All right, I'm sorry. What do you want? I'm human. That's not a real apology. A real apology, I'm sorry. You're right. You're right. I'm sorry. I have nothing to say. I'm embarrassed. I'm sorry. I know a great person. I don't want to say publicly. Did something very bad publicly. Something not nice. And then in front of everyone, manned up. I'm sorry. I'm embarrassed. I have nothing to say. That's a man. That is a Yehuda, my friends. That is courage. That is strength. That is greatness. That is leadership. That is a king. And Yehuda owns it. And take a look at his great-great-great-grandson, David HaMelech. David HaMelech, we know, he did something similar. David HaMelech and Bathsheba wasn't a clean act. It's fishy. Something there. Obviously not on the level that we think. The Gemara is very clear that that David HaMelech's sin wasn't as bad as we make it out to sound. But it was a sin. Nonetheless, it was a sin. It's a fact. And what happens was he takes, Torah tells us that the Navi says that he takes Bathsheba as a wife. Not as a wife. He saw her on the roof and he just took her one time. And really, she was not married. She was married. Her husband was out at war. Now David rationalized that she's not really married because any soldier back then that would go out to battle would write his wife a get, just in case he doesn't come back and we don't know where he is. You don't want to lead to aguna issues. Unfortunately today there's certain cases of ladies that are agunot, their husbands are get refusers, or their husbands, we don't know where they went. When, unfortunately, October 7th, 9/11, these questions, they come up, agunot questions. Is the husband? We don't know. Is he dead? Could the wife remarry? Is he still alive? Is she still married? These are very complicated questions. So anyways, David did what he did. And then a few months later, Bathsheba gets pregnant. And she sends David a message, I'm pregnant. And David understands this doesn't look good, of course, because her husband's not around. So he quickly calls the husband from battle. And he says, how you doing? How's it going out there? Okay, nice, okay, fine. Do me a favor, go back home for a night. Be with your wife. You deserve a break. And he said, I'm sorry, I can't do that. My men are at battle. He said, no, I understand, but as the king, I'm telling you, go home. He says, I'm sorry, king, I can't listen to you. Now, really, once he said that, he's chayav mita. That's called mored b'malchut. So this man, Uriah Hitti, he's automatically out. He's dead. Just by saying that, he's dead. So David says back, okay, I understand. Go back to battle. Do me a favor, give this letter to Yoav, to the general. He takes the letter back. Yoav opens it up and he reads to put Uriah in the front line, in the Hazit, it's called. And also Arabic means Hazit. Hazit, he's Nebach. He's forget it. Front line, you're done. So he puts him in the front line, and of course Uriah died in battle. Next day, Natan Navi comes to David and he says, David, I need your help. There's a case that came to the courtroom. He's okay, what's up? He says, let me ask you, what would you do to such a fellow? There's this one guy, rich guy, a lot of sheep. And a friend came for visit. And he wanted to serve his guest, this rich man, he wanted to serve his guest dinner, barbecue. Instead of going to his backyard where he has hundreds of sheep, he goes to the neighbor who had one sheep, only one. And he takes the sheep. And he kills the sheep and he serves the barbecue. And Hazit, the guy only has one sheep. What would you do to such a man? David, infuriated. What? Take his only neighbor's one sheep, he has 100 of them? That's such a ruthless guy? Kill him! Kill him! Usually for theft, you don't kill. But this is the different level. You kill the guy. Natan smiles and says, David, Ata ha'ish. That's you. That's you, David. You have hundreds of wives. You took your neighbor's one wife. Now, pause. You're David. What do you say? Right? Today, if it was today's politicians, excuse me? How dare you judge me? You don't even know the story? Off with his head. You're fired. Get him out of here. She was kosher. She had a get. The guy was mored b'malchut. He rebelled against the king. I mean, if David hired Alan Dershowitz, he would be off the hook. Off the hook. No problemo. Easiest way to defend David. You know what David says? One word. Chatati. I'm wrong. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And you know what Natan said? Okay. No problem. You're forgiven. Let's move on. Next topic. What do you think we should do with these Pelishtim? You know, how do we handle the financial crisis? You know? That's it. He said, I'm sorry. Move on. Gemara says, David, two sins. Killed and Eshet Ish. And again, not as bad as we're saying it. But Beshtayim, David HaMelech, 2 sins. Didn't lose the kingship. Stayed the king. Because he knew how to say, I'm sorry. He knew how to man up. He knew how to admit. Shaul HaMelech, the first king, 1 sin, and he lost the kingship. Shaul be'ahat altalo. Shaul with 1 sin lost it. David with 2 sins and he didn't lose it. Shaul only did 1 thing wrong. Shaul was sent to go fight Amalek. He made a mistake. He kept the sheep alive. He shouldn't have done that, but he kept the sheep alive. He comes back. Shmuel says to him, I thought I told you to kill everyone. You know what Shaul could have said? 1 word. He could have said 1 word. Chatati. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I messed up. The pressure got to me. I messed up as a leader. I failed. I'm sorry. And you know what? He would have still been the king. He still would have been the king. But unfortunately, history didn't play out like that for him. He decided not to man up, not to say that, not to own his mistake. He shifted the blame onto others. He said, no, we're going to bring a korban. The people wanted 2 or 3 times, until finally after 3, 4 times, he said, okay, fine, I'm sorry. Too late. Shaul be'ahat ve'altalo. Shaul with 1 mistake, but he lost it. David b'shtayim. David made 2 mistakes and he still kept it. Because it's okay to make mistakes, my friends. It's okay. We're human. God doesn't expect perfection. God expects accountability. God expects us to own it. We got to own our mistakes. We got to man up. We got to say, I'm sorry. And this is what Yehuda teaches us. And Yehuda and Tamar, my friends, Tamar ends up reminding us how careful we have to be not to embarrass people. She was ready to die not to embarrass Yehuda. That is greatness, if there ever was. So that's our job, my friends, in this world. We have to make sure not to embarrass. Moshe Rabbeinu teaches us in the Perashah, even a sinner you don't embarrass. We have to be very careful not to call out people publicly. My friends, of course, people do things that are wrong. Person's talking in shul, that's not okay. But to say he in front of everybody, stop talking already, to embarrass a guy, that's also not okay. You know, actually, after the incident of David, it's very interesting. Unfortunately, David, till the end of his life, had haters. There were cynics. There were people that didn't buy into him. They said, he's not a real. And I'm talking about religious people, by the way. People maybe with beards and hats that would look at David and say, you're not a guy, you're not a religious guy. You're not a real Jewish king. You're Rasha. And they were in the study hall, these Jewish very religious people in the study hall. And they were learning Gemara, and one day David would walk into the study hall and they would look, hey David, how you doing? David, let me ask you a question. What would you say about somebody who commits adultery? What's the punishment for that? They would ask him, like, shtach. You know what David said back to them? David says, it's an interesting question. It's adultery is death, but he could do teshuvah. He gets olam haba. But I'll tell you who doesn't get olam haba. It's somebody who embarrasses one in public. So you wanna throw the thing on me for but you're embarrassing in public. That's what David said back. Little wink. So embarrassing, my friends, there's no room in Judaism for that. We have to be very sensitive. People are guilty. They do the wrong thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't justify embarrassing. You want to say something to somebody, you pull them over. You say it privately. You got to be sensitive. You got to think about their feelings. What do you mean? I saved the guy's life. I'm preventing him from going to battle. Say thank you. That's not enough. Moshe Rabbeinu says that's not enough. You got to go the extra mile. You got to ask yourself. You got to think, okay, fine. He's not going to go to battle. But 1 second, it's going to expose him. It's going to be now very obvious that he did the sin because he's not going. How do I prevent that? You cap it at 1,000. So now you give the guy a way out. Brilliant. And I'll tell you one last maaseh. The Gemara tells us, Masechet Shabbat, end of the Masechet, page 156. The Gemara says that there was once an astronomer, and he was sitting next to a rabbi, and he saw in the stars, they used to be able to read the stars. He saw in the stars that there's this guy who's walking to work right here, that he's going to die that day, that a snake's going to kill him. And the rabbi said back, if he's a Jew, not necessarily. Because Jews, they're not bound to the stars. A Jew could rise above the stars. We had a whole class on this, that we could rewrite the stars, even if you're not the greatest showman, right? We are me'al ha-mazal. We are above the mazal. So he says, I don't know, if he's a Jew, not necessarily. Anyways, the guy goes to work, he comes back, and he's alive. The astronomer can't believe it. How? What? I saw it. It was for sure death. He said, I told you. Now the rabbi was intrigued. He went over, he says, tell me, anything happened at work today? Because he knew this guy was supposed to die and he lived. Something happened. He must have had a miracle. He said, anything that you did extraordinary today, tell me. He says, I'll tell you actually. We have every day potluck for lunch. That means that every day somebody brings a dish. Everyone brings a dish. Enough for everyone. And then you make all the rice. You make all the hamod. You make all the ma'udeh, right? You get all the chicken. And then we all bring it. And then everyone takes a bit. You make a plate of everything, right? That's how we eat lunch every day. So today I noticed one guy didn't bring his portion for everybody. He didn't bring a share. And then if they're going to go around and collecting, it's going to be very embarrassing for him. So I decided today I'm going to do the collecting. And I went around and I had the basket of food. And I went and I said, okay, everyone put in. When I got to this guy, I sneaked out of my pocket food. And I made believe I took it from him. I said, here, okay, thank you. And I threw it in the basket. I made believe it was from him. That's what I did today. I volunteered and I saved the guy. And the rabbi said back, my friend, that saved you from death. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, you were supposed to die. He's like, come on. No, I'm telling you, there was a snake. What snake? Anyways, as they're talking, they look in the bundles that the guy's holding of wheat, of hay, whatever he had, and they see right there one snake cut in half. That snake, that was a snake waiting to kill you. That was the snake that you chopped as you were cutting the harvesting of the wheat. Saved your life. That one piece of bread that you didn't embarrass the guy. So this is the power, my friends, of not embarrassing. So next time an opportunity comes to your door, presents itself to you, and you have the ability to respond, to say, to embarrass. But remember this. Remember how beautiful it is when we are able to be sensitive to other people. How beautiful it is when we're able not to embarrass, the people around us. It could even one day come back and save our lives. But one thing's for sure is that it leads to greatness. Okay, my friends, we'll stop over here. Have a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.